Okay, good morning, everybody. Uh, Glad to see everybody out this rainy Saturday morning. My name's Kerry Crawford. I have the privilege of currently being the president of the Arkansas Association of Black Psychology Professionals. We've been organized now for right about 12 years, getting close to our 12th year, right? 12 years. We've done a variety of workshops. Our main goal, the efforts here is really to enhance the understanding of psychology and treatment and stressors and things like that with our population, the marginally grouped people, the minority people. We're trying to emphasize, you know, opening up and giving the community better access to what's going on with mental health. We're trying to help students when they do come with mentoring and stuff like that, and making sure they do the process through education. Uh, we're now on part two of Parents and Educators as Change Agents Navigating Adversity and Stressors. We had a very, very good part one on this here at this facility. We'd like to welcome everybody here today. We do have refreshments out here. Well, I kind of like to get started kind of an early meet and greet if we can. I'd like to hear, starting from here, going down this way. Let us know who you are, why you're here, and what would you like to maybe get out of this session before we get started officially, okay? Start right here, please, young man.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dario Mims. I'm a Little Rock firefighter, and I'm currently in school to get my bachelor's in psychology. And honestly, I just want to gain as much knowledge as I can. It's not anything specific that I'm looking to learn as far as just whatever you guys have to offer. Any type of wisdom, knowledge, information. I'm ready to accept it all. Thank y'all.
I'm Mona Mims. I am a behavior interventionist for the Little Rock School District over at Lacey Academy, kindergarten through 8th grade. A very challenging job. I do work with a lot of students that have a lot of different things, but the educators and the parents are some of the main things, and we can see the connection of the problems that we have with the children sometimes have to do with the education they're receiving and the parenting that they're getting. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm like my stepson, as you notice, just here to absorb. And I was here last time, and I learned a lot. I really didn't know what to expect last time, and I walked out of here like, oh my God, I'm so much smarter. So I'm glad to be back again today, this second workshop.
Okay, I guess I go. Hello, my name is Kyla Holmes, and I'm a clinical psychologist here in Arkansas and the vice president of this association. Thank you all for being here.
Well, my name is Carolyn Lewis, and I'm from Jonesboro, Arkansas. A little dry this morning, but it's okay. I am just retired about 4 years ago. Had been the therapeutic foster care director at Mid-South Health Systems in Jonesboro for about 24 years. I'm keeping my license current. So I want to stay abreast on changes that are happening, and especially when we're talking about dealing with our youth. So I have been doing a lot of substitute teaching. It's a lot different when you can't get to be with them one-on-one than when I was doing some therapy. So in the community, I'm doing little pop-up workshops with some of the parents on just behavior, and coping skills is not enough. They need more than just coping skills. So I am here to gather as much information as I can to continue my journey with being an LPC.
Good morning. My name is Yvonne Holmes. I am from Memphis, Tennessee, and I too recently retired in July. So yeah, it's an adjustment. But I too worked as a therapeutic foster care coordinator with Arista Health for 20 years. And I have background with the Department of Children and Family Services. So, and I do, again, like with Carolyn, with my licensure, want to maintain my licensure, want to stay current on what's going on, and, and being able to, understand the stigma that's associated with mental health, especially among our population. So any additional information that I can gain will be helpful.
Good morning. I am S.C. Ward, and without all the credentials that you guys have, I'm an arts intervention specialist. I authored a project called Act Out Loud that was launched through Johns Hopkins University, but we use a program to marry the arts and education. So we work with behavior management through breaking down learning barriers and putting children in a creative environment, and then teaching kind of through that environment as well. I am on the Arkansas Arts Council, so I can actually come in free of charge because the Arts Council will pay for me to do workshops or residencies around the state. And I'm here to learn as much as I can and to connect. I went back into the school system to substitute so that I could go to different schools. And what I'm seeing is absolutely appalling.
Absolutely.
And we keep blaming things on parents. But once they're in that school, it's on the administrators. And so I'm just here to share and to learn.
Okay. Welcome.
I am Rosetta Spence Pleasant, and I'm a grandmother that's here as a volunteer with Phoebe, People Helping Mothers to Excel by Example. That's an organization in Hot Springs, Arkansas. We have 3 different aspects, but my greatest interest there and where I expend most of my energy is with the Missouri Youth Group. And we have classes, we have a 9-week course where we teach them different aspects, interviewing, we have people from different backgrounds and organizations to come in and talk to them about their work. We offer things on creative writing, and things that they would need, how to interview, how to dress, just kind of open up things to them. But I've been looking at the statistics. We're actually redoing our curriculum, and I know that there's a great need for everyone, but particularly youth at this time in mental health. So I'm here to learn what I can to offer that program and talk to those young people. Their ages 10 to 19, and this is our 26th year.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like a sponge, and it's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
I'm Regina, and I'm a licensed psychological examiner, and I'm currently work in the Pulaski County School District, in the Special Education Department. I'm also a member of the organization that AABPP here, and I will be doing one of the interactive activities this morning with us with the board. I've been in the field for over 40 years now, and I will be retired at the end of the school. I'll be retired. I'm retired.
Pat?
Good morning. Welcome. I'm Pat Griffin, clinical psychologist, one of the founding members of this organization, and we're just pleased that you are here. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, I'm Erica Mays. I'm a psychological examiner, currently working with the Little Rock School District. I'm one of the founding members of this organization and currently serve as the secretary treasurer. So thank you for coming this morning.
Okay. Wow, we have such a great variety of talent and employability, and the people just worked all in various areas. But did I pick up 3 different states? 3 different states, and we're really glad to have you here. I am a licensed psych examiner, independent, retired. I worked in mental health for about 44 and a half years, retired last year. Just became a great grand. And worked in a variety of places. I worked in the prison systems, worked for Department of Human Services. I think the last 20-something years I worked doing assessments and mental health evaluations for the Arkansas Rehab Association and under the Department of Education. But we're glad to have everybody here. Restrooms are down the hall to the left, right? Okay, please feel free to get left and right. we're really going to have a real good conversation today. I think with this group of people, I think we're going to really enjoy what we're going to be doing today. And we're going to leave here more enriched and more encouraged to go back and work in the areas that we're working in, okay? And without further ado, we ready to get started?
Well, as I mentioned, my name is Dr. Holmes. I'm a clinical psychologist. I predominantly work with children ages about 6 or so to young adults, so 25. I guess they're still youth, or college age students. And I also spend some time working in the schools doing trauma-informed care. So essentially what the bottom line of what that means is making sure that the school building, everything connected with the school is a safe and healthy place for everybody, for staff members, for children, for families, so the children can learn well and the teachers can teach well, or that everybody in the building can do their job well, and really increase learning, basically increase learning and growth. So that's what essentially trauma-informed care is. We'll talk about some other aspects of that as we move throughout today. So what I'm going to do, because today is going to be more interactive. So when we were last year, it was giving information, sharing information. We had a good conversation. We're going to do that today as well, but we hope to make it more interactive. So when we leave here today, you feel like you have at least one thing that you can do to continue to be a change agent for our children and families. Okay. Okay, so just in terms of our agenda, I'm going to talk some about the 3 E's of trauma, talk a little bit about resilience, and then we're going to get right into our activities. So we're going to spend most of the time on that 3rd bullet point, activities. We're going to talk about being a safe person, what that means for everybody in this room to be a safe person for our youth, and what that means, what that looks like. And then we're also going to talk about moving from dysregulation to regulation. And then we're going to talk about some community resources, which some of you all have already shared. It's just amazing. I think we've already heard 3 or 4 resources that we hadn't heard about. So I don't know if it's a way to capture these before we're done today. Like there's resources across Arkansas that'll be good for our organization to know about as well. Okay, so that's what we're focusing on today. So Carrie, you stole my thunder there. We were gonna have this opening, but Carrie did it, so we're not gonna repeat it for the sake of time. But I do want to just highlight a strategy. So sometimes when I'm working with folks that very intentional about creating safe spaces, oftentimes it's good to start meetings in a way that allows people to connect with each other, and to know that we can bring all of who we are into whatever space that we're in. This is one way of doing that, where we can open meetings, open workshops, open gatherings in ways that are mindful and really almost like setting the atmosphere or the tone for the day. This is just one way of doing that, where you can say, how are you feeling today? Some people use by using a feeling word or emotion word. Some people rate that on a scale of 0 to 10. But it really emphasizes that it's okay for us to bring our emotional self into the room. It's okay to feel whatever it is that we're feeling. We don't have to explain why we feel the way we feel. Sometimes we just got to sit with, I'm feeling disappointed. I'm feeling hopeless. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling nervous. Whatever that is, so other people in the space can be sensitive to that. They don't have to rescue you from it, just like with the youth. We don't have to all the time rescue them from what it is that they're feeling, right? We can just notice it and be there with them, right? To know, so they can know it's okay for me to feel what I'm feeling right now. That doesn't make me any less of a person. It doesn't make me bad. It doesn't make me wrong. It doesn't make me crazy. It makes me human, right? So we have to start with us doing that. We have to do that as adults to make sure we are okay to sit with how it is that we feel around other adults. We've talked already about our goal together for today that gets us kind of in our thinking brain focused on today, and then also being aware of who we could ask for support. So when this is done, it can be virtual or in person, but taking like even 30 seconds to a minute for each person to say, like I might say, today I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling hopeful. And the goal, I hope we can be clear in our communication with you all today, and that we give some practical tools and strategies that you feel enriched by. And then support will be this lovely planning team of folks here with our organization who we've been supporting each other for years. So that's who I would ask for support today if I needed it. right? And then usually just popcorn it around. Take about just a few minutes at the beginning of a meeting to do that. And that helps us get in the present and then get connected with each other. So hopefully you can have a productive time. So just keep that in mind. Anytime you're gathering with people, it can be a little bit of a check-in. To say, check in, how's everybody doing? What do we hope to get out of today? And who's your support team? Okay, so we're gonna move past that. Okay, so a little bit about the 3 E's. So I'm just going to jump into this. Those that were here last year know that we talked about this some last year, but we're just going to do a brief overview so it's clear about why we're even having this event today. What does it mean? Why are we doing it? What's the purpose of it? So we're just going to talk a little bit about the background and, like I say, get into the activities. So when we talk about the 3 E's of trauma, we are essentially talking about the events, the thing that happened, right? The thing that happened, what happened, the events, how did they experience the event, and then the effects of the event, right? So anytime we're talking about trauma, adversity, stressors, it's really important if we want to understand the youth to understand these parts of them, because we know that a lot of us, for different reasons, we can talk about COVID, we can talk about anything that has been a collective adversity for our communities and for our society. And we know that different people experience the same event in different ways, based on how old they are, based on their personality, based on their previous traumas, based on all sorts of things. So it's important to know, how are people experiencing the event and what effect could it have on their brain, body, behavior, and health? So when we talk about events, these again, any problematic events, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Let's maybe talk for a little bit, just in brief. Again, we're going to get to these activities, but I want to be sure we're all on the same page first. What types of potentially traumatic events, stressors, or adversities do you feel like you're seeing in the youth and families in your communities and settings? Let's just kind of get that conversation going, and please be sure to press that button if you want to share. What are you seeing?
Shootings.
Okay.
In all of our communities, and even those children who have not experienced a school shooting yet, there's always that possibility.
Yeah.
That the way children are having to train with the preparation. And
Yeah.
it's just not something that we, in my generation, is
Yeah.
really much with school.
Mhm.
I think that's a significant stressor.
Yeah, I agree. School shootings. I was actually doing a presentation with educators just on Thursday. And literally, I think that was one of the first ones they mentioned too. Like, imagine 5 or 10 years ago, would that have come up so quickly as like one of the first potentially traumatic events that our youth are faced with, is school shootings and even active shooter drills, right? It's a lot out there about how to make that, make those drills happen in ways that are trauma informed and not going to traumatize just, by doing a drill. So yeah, school shootings. Yes. Yes.
The reason I know is that I wanted to go into something that is several different things. Yesterday was traumatizing. There was a 5th grader on the floor screaming, and I hate this as I hate it as a it was absolutely gut-wrenching. He was screaming, crying on the floor, and I just thought, this is terrible, because he was stressed because of fighting, bullying, meanness, students coming at him. And so I'm seeing that one of the main things is people just being mean to each other, even students being that way. And they're exposed to it because the moment you try to literally talk to a child, they want to point the finger at someone else. They're getting that from the adults. They're seeing everybody blaming everybody else for what they did. And I feel like we have to do something about what's going on once they're in that school building. And then we have to reach out to the parents and have meetings like this that teach the parents how to be supportive at home. Children have lost their value, and we used to instill value into our children. They've lost their value in so many ways. So if that's something that progresses, that would be amazing.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. She mentioned several things, right? So like bullying, that was another thing that the educators mentioned as well. Definitely bullying on a number of levels, probably verbal bullying, physical bullying, being rejected and left out, just being overlooked. There's so many layers and ways that what's it, cyberbullying? Ah, that's right. On social media and all the things. Oh, that's right. TikTok, yeah. Yes, yeah. And then what are they learning? So you said not only are they experiencing certain things with their peers, but what are they learning from the adults around them about how to relate to each other? Right. The other thing you touched on, a lot of times we do talk about like what happened, the thing that happened. And also what you kind of mentioned is also what didn't happen that they need. Right. So sometimes we think about that, what did happen to us, but are there things that the kids are not getting or that we, when we were younger, did not get that we needed that still affected us tremendously in terms of connection and value? Yeah, Erica, go ahead. Yeah.
And a lot of kids are coming to school hungry, having enough to eat. Obviously, it's gonna set up problems, but then also sleep. Lack of sleep, being up all night for various reasons, those are things that are definitely impacting, and constant exposure to that creates that stress and adversity that children are trying to navigate. That's what I'm seeing a lot.
Absolutely. So just if their basic needs aren't being met, food insecurity, maybe even housing insecurity, and then how does that affect them, their ability to even be available for learning when they come to school?
I was going to mention that as well as poverty because of where I'm over in Southwest, and that's one of the things that we see the most. Is kids coming in hungry, kids coming in that pretty much have nowhere to stay. They stayed with Auntie last night, but I was with Grandpa last week. And we found in that area that we have focused at our academy, which is really huge, that we have a parent university at our school. And they come in, bring the parents in like once a month, and we try to educate them on the things and the needs and the facilities and the places that they have around them, the community that supports them if they are going through things. So with my job, most of the time the behavior is dealing because they're hungry. If they're having bad behaviors because they don't have anywhere to stay. They're having bad behavior because of the clothes they're wearing, and other kids are bullying them and talking to them about what they're wearing. So I do agree that all these things are happening, but I do know that in the facility that I work on, that is one of the main focus that we have at Lacey Academy is to work on the children that are dealing with these type of issues. We even have a de-escalation room to where if the kid is having problems in the classroom, we don't chastise them or discourage them. We take them into the room. You need a time to breathe. We'll take your homework in here. We'll let you just sit by yourself and deal with it. And then we'll put you back in the communication, in the community of the students. So, absolutely. But all these things are very, very, very important.
Because it seems like you all have identified, we have a need here. We have a need of kids who their practical basic needs aren't being met. They come to school hungry. How can just on basic days, we haven't eaten breakfast and we're trying to focus. It's hard for us to focus. So imagine that being a chronic problem where daily problem. Wow. Ugh. Yeah. So trying to meet that need so they can learn the best they can and making sure parents are connected. I think that's a wonderful parent university. I'm going to have to keep that in mind. But that's an excellent resource. And then having a space. We'll talk about that today as well, is what does that mean to have some sort of space to help kids and even ourselves move from dysregulation to regulation. So I think like that's one practical tool is wherever the youth are, do they have an area where they can step away and step aside to calm, whether they're in their schools or in their homes or in their communities, wherever they are, if they need to have an area to be able to, regulate and breathe, is that available to them? Or is it not? And then we're going to end up seeing that. They're going to find some way to regulate, and it may not be in the most constructive way if they don't have a space
because
to go
sending them
to.
home is not always the answer.
Absolutely. I actually think rarely is it the answer. Yeah. And I know schools have to do certain things, I guess they feel like they do, but what are some other options? Yeah.
So,
That was you.
My thought is problem solving.
Yes.
We can talk about so much. But one of the things that I feel is if we do something, that would be to even make videos, because we're not going to get so many parents to come to meetings. But if this group even made videos addressing some of these issues, because a safe space, they're going to go back to the same problem from that safe space, and then you're going to end up in the same situation. Well, from one school to another, I saw the schools at Eastham in the same district, Eastham and Benton. They have the old Chromebooks from 19 whatever. And the new schools or the schools in Benton are, and Bryan are majority white. There's 2,000 students in that high school, and there are very few African Americans, majority white, and some Latino Mexican. They have first rate everything. It's kind of like when I was in the 6th grade at Charlotte Stevens Elementary. One young lady opened her book and she said, just like I thought, one of these days I want my name to be the first name written in the book. So you had to sign the book when you got it at the beginning of the year. She said she had never gotten a book that was new. And that made me become an advocate for African Americans because that's what's happening now. They have new iPads. We have old Chromebooks. They have so much more. I noticed that the kids, not only did they get free breakfast, but the Latino kids had take-home packs right outside the door. After school, take this home so you won't be hungry. Yesterday at Eastham, and I won't say what, but there were some apples that the kids had said had been left over for a couple of days. They were not refrigerated. I literally had to pry that little bag of apples out of that kid's hands. I felt like he was that hungry, knowing what he was going to face after school. And when I did that, looking at his face just made me feel like if I had an apple in my purse, it would be his. So I think that maybe if we make a series of videos, then parents can click on these videos and they will help us reach people, or they're out there for people to see what's really going on. And these videos will be made to help solve the problems and make the community aware of what the problems are.
Yeah, it's going to be a multifaceted approach, and it's going to be several things that we have to do. So using technology, if possible, multiple ways of making sure parents and families and communities have access to what they need. So we're already getting into problem solving. I like this. We're already getting into what do we do? So you all have already mentioned the range of traumas and adversities that our youth and children face. Of course, how they experience it. I just want to touch on a little bit about how they experience these different events that we've talked about. So it's important to know, how could their bodies and brains and emotions experience it? So just one part that I'm going to mention, of course, you all probably heard of the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? So we know when it's any kind of adversity that confronts our nervous system in our body is going to try to jump into gear to help us to be able to survive, right? So if we experience in that experience of any stressor, some fight, where that's the response where they might confront the stressor head on. Flight, they may totally avoid it, right? Avoid it, try to move away from it, escape it, or freeze, become immobilized or get stuck. It's other ones also that people may do, but these are the main ones that you mostly hear people talk about. The reason why I have this in here is I think as parents and educators and any adult that's working with youth, it's important for us to understand, are any of the behaviors that we're seeing one of these responses? If they seem resistant, oppositional, if they're running away, they elope. If they literally fight, become verbally or physically aggressive. Is it possible that any of the behaviors that we're seeing really is a stress response? We may not know in that moment to what they're reacting to, but is it possible? So I think in terms of being a change agent, I really feel like as adults, really being curious to understand what could be going on underneath that behavior. It's not saying that behavior is okay or needs to be acceptable, but it is saying we do want to understand it. So if they look shut down and they have their head down and their hoodie up and they're like, no, they don't want to talk, or growling or hissing or all kinds of things we may have seen kids do, right? Animal noises and running and jumping and climbing and all this kind of stuff, running under the tables. What does that mean? Could that mean that that's their body and their brain are responding to something? We don't know what it is. Something on the inside of them, something around them reminded them of something, right? Somebody said in the group I was with a couple of days ago that, one of the teenagers, he had his phone and he would not let it go. He was on the phone, can't be on the phone in schools like that, but he was on the phone and they were trying to get it from him, and he just would not. And it turned into, a conflict. And then once they dug deeper over time, they realized he was a little bit older, well, quite a bit. He was 20, right? Because I'm sure had been retained, but he was 20. He was trying to figure out how to, I think, get a bill paid so the lights would get back on at his house. That's what he was doing, right? Like he had adult responsibilities. And so that's what he was trying to focus on. But then when they gave him an opportunity to be able to explain what's going on, then they were actually able to connect him with services and support and actually help to be able to get the bill paid. Right. So the educators in there gave numerous examples like that. Another educator, he said that a child it seemed like out of nowhere in the class began to just totally, I think, disrupt the class and maybe even start to turn over tables and disrupt the room. But so it was definitely disruptive and it appeared aggressive. But when they dug into it more deeply, somebody had said the word smoke in the conversation that they were having, and his house had burned the night before. Right. And so just hearing that word was a trigger for him and a reminder of what just had happened, and then that dysregulated him. But without trying to have that compassion to understand what type of response we're seeing, that could have just been punitive, send him home, suspend, and then would have never known what was going on in his life. Right. So it really takes some curiosity to understand what could be going on underneath behaviors. I'm just going to do this quickly. Basically, the main point of this slide that I'll say today is to know that all function and behavior is dependent upon the brain state we're in, not just children, right? Us as adults as well. When we're not in that reasoning part, what we call executive state, this thinking part of our brain, we're more likely to be emotional in that fight, flight, or freeze response. And it's really based on the way the brain works. I think we could probably spend the next 30 minutes on this slide, but I think the bottom line is to know that their brain is doing something when they are responding in that way and getting really emotional or just shutting down, right? That it doesn't have to be in a way that looks aggressive or defiant. They can just be very quiet and withdrawn. And there's still something going on in their brain that's impacting the way that they're acting. So basically, one of the bottom lines of this slide is to know if we want to be a safe person for really just other humans in general, but certainly youth, is to understand that if they're dysregulated in any way, they first need to regulate and feel like they're safe. That's why we're going to talk about being a safe person today. If they don't feel safe, it's hard to jump to reasoning. Like, why did you do that? What's going on? What are you feeling? Like asking all these questions and wanting them to talk and answer questions. If they're down here, they literally aren't accessing the part of their brain that helps them to talk and understand what you're saying, right? They really just need to regulate first. And then when they kind of shift up from that, they feel a little safe. Then they need to feel loved and feel a sense of connection. Like, you still care about me. I still matter. I still belong. Isn't it even regulating to think if we're around people where we feel physically and emotionally safe with them, we feel like even if we disagree, they still care about us. We still matter, right? That can be calming, right? And then they can think and learn and all the things that we want them to do at school. And do chores at home and all the stuff that requires their thinking brain, right? But if they're down here, it's going to be harder to do the things that we expect them to do. Does that make sense? What do y'all think about that? You feel like you see that?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
When you give them a minute to breathe.
Yeah.
Sit in those feelings for a minute before you start firing out all these questions. Why do you do that? Why do you disturb the classroom? Why did you draw your book? Why would you take out the tab of the line? We give them a minute, just breathe. Let them calm down and slowly start. That's it works so well with young children, even with adults, and I do on something as well. But because they don't know the state of those symptoms, just before we start firing up all of those social. You're going to
I don't know how many like kids, and I know folks that work in therapy and counseling their kids in any way. No, sometimes they'll tell me, I just need time and space. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute. Like, and even some of them, they need a minute. They still need the adult there, especially if they're parent. Just be in the room. Show me you still love me, but just like, don't ask questions. Don't come touch me, try to hug me and look like, no, none of those things. Just be present. Give me a minute to breathe. Basically, they're shifting up. They don't really know what's all happening in the brain, but basically they're shifting up, shifting up, shifting up. And then they may be ready for a conversation, maybe knowing that their brain is not all the way developed. So they're going to give us the best they can. But, you know, but let them shift up. Regina, were you going to add? Yeah.
I was gonna say yesterday, I was in some that reminded me because we spent and you had all of these adults. He was the only child in the room. His parent was in the room, and she definitely initially was like really almost to the point of making excuses for him until she read the reports from the administration about what he had been doing. And he had not been honest with her. And for her to find that out in the meeting, I mean, you could just see the changes over time in his body, becoming more defensive, becoming, kind of shutting down, dropping his head. And it was just amazing because after all of that, mom came back to him and said, I love you, son. And we're all here trying to help you, and that I still love you. And it was amazing how he started to respond more positively in that situation. But she told him, you still have your consequences.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, it has to be both. It can be both. But he can still get his consequences, but I still love you. I still love you. I'm still connected with you. Wow. So you're saying you literally saw that as the stress started to come, you saw him like shifting down, probably tensing up, you even saw it on his body and in his face, I'm sure.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Right. So that's why we have to be attuned to notice, because sometimes we may not see it as acting out, but you see a shift in their body, their muscle tension, whatever it ends up that's happening. You can tell on their face and their body that their stress response is kicking in. So then you have to be able to respond accordingly. Yeah. What are you going to
Go back to the previous slide. I think a lot of times teachers and adults don't understand the experience of the time, especially coming from a background of foster care where children come from traumatic experiences, because any child in the foster care system has experienced some type of trauma, or they wouldn't be in the system in the beginning. And I'm sure Carol and I, we saw it almost on a daily basis where children, they acted out. They were very considered oppositional, very defiant, very with disregard for adult authority. And most of the time, the response was punitive from the teachers. And I think in a lot of instances, teachers became dysregulated. And so it only escalated the situation. And a dysregulated adult cannot regulate a child if they themselves are dysregulated.
Right. I know you talk. I need to just pause on that for a second. Did everybody hear that? A dysregulated adult cannot regulate a child. In order, if we want a child to be regulated, we have to regulate ourselves first. That is critical when it comes to being a safe person. We have to know how to regulate ourselves first. Okay, I wanted to highlight that. Go ahead. I know you were still.
No.
Okay.
Just basically understanding the child. Children in foster care are sent home so much. You really have to be an advocate. You have to know the laws, the educational laws, in order to be there and to support that child. And we also experienced it a lot in the foster home is just constantly training and retraining and getting the parents to meet the children where they are.
Right.
Keeping that trauma narrative first and foremost. Because if you can understand, you need to understand the behavior and that all behavior has meaning.
Yep.
And if you can go back to that source, then you can understand and you can support that child. But, we had children coming from all across the state of Arkansas. And, if you take me right now, as old as I am, and say, Yvonne, you're not going back to Memphis today, you have a problem. And so, but we expect children to do that.
Right.
They've been displaced from everything that they know. And no matter how bad or how dysfunctional it was their life.
Right.
And so we expect them to come to a foster home or go to a school the next day coming from Fort Smith and function in a school in Pulaski County. They're not ready.
Right.
And so I think educators really don't understand. They don't understand trauma. They don't know how to support a foster child. They don't understand mental health. And I think that if they could get additional training in that area and make those connections, I think a lot of our children will the experience will be a lot better.
Right. Yeah. And that's a significant part. So talking about that education, awareness, and training, that's part of trauma-informed care, is making sure that's actually one of the first steps that people can take, is make sure everybody in that school, in that setting, has some level of understanding about trauma and the impact of trauma. So usually like these kind of slides that we're going through now are the first set of slides to talk about. Carrie, yeah.
What about the teachers who don't care? The teachers who don't care. Well, I found out, and you find out, even in elementary, middle school, and even in some colleges, students can tell whether or not the teacher is struggling with administration care about them. And so when you consider the fact that they're living in an environment at home where nobody cares, and they come into the school system and nobody cares. That to me, that's a major issue. And I saw back in the day, in elementary schools and in high schools, these kids know that the teacher don't give a hoot about them. Especially the situation we're talking about, certain school districts, and they have all the advantages and stuff like that. And teachers really don't care about certain other kids. And either they don't care or they don't have the time to do so. And I think that adds a lot of the trauma and the dealing a lot of these kids have going to school because they don't get any support at home, any love and caring at home, and they come to the classroom setting and they have the same environment to deal with.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So a big part of having a trauma-informed environment is an environment where the kids know that they feel a sense of connectedness with the school, that they care, I matter, I belong. There's even research to support that if kids do not feel connected at the school, they probably don't feel safe, and they probably are not learning at their best. They're not learning because, again, when it goes back to just the way the brain works, if we're not feeling a felt sense of safety and connection, it's hard for our brain to work at its best up in our thinking part, because the other parts are just overworking. It's like it's feeling a lack, basically. It's feeling some sort of lack or deficit.
So I just want to say that those two gentlemen are, thank you so much for bringing that up. Because they're in the same space, thank you guys for figuring that out and even putting it in those terms.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's helpful.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Regina, were you going to add? Yeah.
I was going to say that, in looking at it, like we're looking at living at home, community, school is a place where business can absolutely be grown up, but it has to start at the top. And that model and the understanding of trauma from the superintendent, the school board, and then that comes down, we're training teachers, but if there are policies and things in place that prevent them from doing some of these things, then, the teachers feel like their hands are tied a lot of times. And so we definitely need to have these kind of conversations with the people that make the policies and the rules
about trauma. They don't understand it. They just know what the State Department said we have to do this. But it really does come down to training from the top down.
Yeah. That's 100% right. So you all are basically outlining that if we were the group of folks that I work with at UAMS and A-State, when we go into schools and programs and say trauma-informed care, we try to work with everybody in that building, and absolutely right, starting with our senior leaders. And if they let us, it was one program that we worked with, and we went to the school, they let us impromptu, went over and talked to the school superintendent. He sat down with us. He gave us about 5 or 10 minutes, but we sat down with him, right? So we know, at least we have some face-to-face contact to know that your role in what it is that we're doing at this one school is important, because you're a decision maker, you're a policy maker, and certain decisions that you make is going to affect the success of this implementation. So absolutely, when we're really doing that, policies, procedures, practices, all of those things, not just the classroom. It's not just the classroom. Okay, I may go through, probably for the sake of time, I may go ahead and watch this video. This video, if it plays, it's about 8 minutes that kind of summarizes what it is we just talked about. And then we're gonna get into your conversation, what you said, Carrie, about being able to show the kids that we care. So that tied in. He didn't even know that's the acronym I'm using today, is about care. So how do we show care? Yeah, so if this plays. Oh, excellent. Yep.
Brain development is much more than a story about biology. From the earliest years, relationships with others play a key role in shaping how our brain grows and develops. Early relationships, where there is youth and neglect, have a long-term impact on them. A brain can adapt to survive in a threatening or unpredictable world may not work so well in an ordinary environment. This can create what is called latent vulnerability, where early abusive or neglectful experiences with carers put children at greater risk of experiencing mental health problems in the future. For these children, compared to their peers, common experiences like moving to a new school can feel more daunting and stressful. New faces can appear threatening, while positive social cues can be missed. It can be hard to negotiate new social situations and learn to trust new people. Even fun experiences like joining a new sports team can be challenging. Too much focus on potential direct cues can mean missing out on positive social cues such as the play in their life. Or it causes an overreaction, which leads to an increased risk of conflict and sometimes violence. These reactions can increase the likelihood of generating new stressful events. It is harder to deal with everyday challenges when we feel unconfident and anxious inside, and hard to build and maintain relationships. Over time, this can mean the child loses friends and the support of adults, and so misses out on opportunities to grow and develop. This social thinning can increase the risk of mental health problems in the future. Neuroscience research is beginning to shed new light on how vulnerability unfolds over a child's life. All children need care and stimulation from adults who value them and who show them attention and love. These experiences shape a child's brain development. When children face traumatic experiences like abuse and neglect, their brain adapts to help them cope. We know of changes in 3 different brain systems: the reward, memory, and threat systems. Experiences of domestic violence and physical abuse can lead to hypervigilance, where the brain reacts more to threat. This might help a child stay safe in an early adverse environment, but it can cause problems in more ordinary environments. Hypervigilance can best be understood as a pattern of adaptation rather than a sign of damage. Abuse and neglect can also mean a world where a child's basic needs for care and attention are not met. This can shape the brain's reward system, the part of the brain that helps us learn about positive aspects of our environment and motivates our behaviour. Over time, the brain's reward system can learn to respond differently to things like positive social cues. Neuroscience studies have also pointed to changes in the autobiographical memory system, our memory of everyday past experiences. Following trauma, negative memories appear to become more salient, which means they become more prominent in positive ones. and everyday memories can also become less detailed. This is a problem because we need to draw on past experiences to help us deal with new social situations. Neuroscience research is showing how childhood trauma can create later vulnerability, increasing the risk of later mental health problems like anxiety and depression. This vulnerability is not just located in the child, but arises through their relationships. Helping children who have experienced trauma still requires ordinary boundaries and consequences, but it also requires us to step back and reflect, and see behaviour that we find challenging in a different light. A child may simply be doing their best to survive with brain adaptations from the past. We know a child's brain has the capacity to continue to adapt. For this to happen, they need our help to build and maintain trusted relationships, manage everyday stresses, and prevent new ones from happening. We need to encourage them to try again and believe things can be different. This is far from an easy task and takes time. Science is helping reframe our understanding of childhood trauma. Seeing children's behaviour in a new light can mean we respond differently. But there is much still to learn. Working together, we can develop more effective approaches that promote resilience and recovery. We can help children build trusting relationships and create opportunities for their brains to adapt in new ways.
Any immediate thoughts? What are your thoughts? Anything that stood out? Maybe something that was surprising, something that you connected with? Okay.
I don't think a lot of us connect the dots like that. They kind of connected the dots to show how we don't really consider how a child is thinking and what they're experiencing and how it controls the relationships further on down the line. And don't see how a lot of times their inability to communicate when they're 9 and 10 is based on something that they were exposed to prior to that period of time. We always focus a lot of times on the here and now and not go back and look at some of the possible causes of that behavior to help us deal with the behavior instead of just trying to deal with the behavior as is. We need to be more aware of the fact that, so like a car, it took a period of time for your car to run out of oil, okay? Okay, what was going on with the car that caused the car to run out of oil first? If I can understand that process, it can help me understand a lot more, maybe be a little more supportive and understanding and help that child get to a safe space that they need to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a really good point, because sometimes we don't even go beyond what just happened 5 minutes ago. So first we got to start to at least rewind, and maybe something happened an hour ago that impacted what's happening now, but much less something that happened 3 years ago. So if you saw that, probably in here he was maybe 14 or 15, and it went back to something that happened probably when he was 8 or 9, right? And that literally, even if he doesn't make that connection himself, his body remembered that. His body remembered that movement when his dad pushed him. Well, I'm assuming that adult male pushed him like that. And so when he was pushed like that 5 years later, body remembered it, a body memory, and then reacted based on that, right? So we just have to know that, like be able to make those connections ourselves and maybe help parents and educators make that same connection.
It's hard to get even other family members to recognize that.
That yes.
They have effects.
Mm-hmm.
When you sometimes communicate with the families, one parent may feel one way and the other parent feels another. And particularly with fathers, it seems they kind of rely that everything is in the present for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that the mother is saying, well, this happened, perhaps it's related to that.
Yep.
But it's hard to get people to really recognize that past events do.
Yes.
You know that.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see that so much.
Yeah.
In the family.
Right. Yeah.
Another aspect that maybe needs to be presented.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So being able to present that. So maybe that's something we can all think about as well in whatever spaces that we're in. How do we how do we communicate that? Whether if that's just in a conversation, if we're doing a presentation, if we're doing a workshop, what are different ways to help people in their own brain make that connection that something from the past is impacting now, sometimes with families, just to make sure, and then understanding from the adult perspective, because what I've seen is parents get a challenge with that if they start to feel shame about it. So if it's something that they did or they felt like they contributed to or was responsible for 5 years ago that still have an impact now, they may be want to kind of push it away because there's a lot of shame attached to it. So how to help them as well kind of shift up into their thinking brain, because shame and guilt will keep them down in a stress response as well. So there's a lot going on there, but yes, that's a very important point. Okay, so we're just going to move just into a conversation about resilience. I think for the sake of time, if I can, I'm going to move past this slide because we're talking about basically ways of building resilience. One way to do that is by being a safe person. Yes, I think we're going to move to those white pieces of paper in just a bit. So how can we do that? First, I think I'm just going to watch this video that talks about the importance of one way of being a safe person is for us as adults, parents and educators or any adults, to make sure we're building our own capacity, right? So even in that example that you just gave, that parent is going to be important for them to ideally do their own work so that they can feel safe enough to kind of go to the past. Right? Because it's sometimes the reasons why people just want to stay in the present. It could be hurtful. It could be feel shamed or embarrassment or guilt or whatever about going to the past. So we have to build our own capacities so that we can be there for the kiddos. Let's just look at this video and then we're going to get into more of a conversation about it.
The social challenges that face modern societies, whether it's the ability to work productively, to be a good citizen, stay healthy, have their roots in early health and development. A strong foundation in early childhood results in much better and more effective development later. A weak foundation really puts us behind. The most important thing something to thrive is to live in the environment of relationships to kids in their family, but also extends out to include also in members of childcare centers and other programs. What children need is that an entire environment of relationships to be invested in their healthy development. We've shown from decades of testing interventions that we can improve outcomes. But the magnitude of those impacts is not good enough. Science is now available to help us think about what we might do that would have a bigger impact than the best of what we've done before. So we began to ask, what could we be doing differently? What could we do to be smarter? Children who are at the greatest risk for the poorest outcomes in learning and health and behavior are children who are experiencing the cumulative burden of one after another risk factors. And then the burden is more than any child could be expected to overcome. So we began to focus on the development of the adults. What could we be doing to strengthen the capacity of everyone who interacts with children? This led us to think about the kinds of skills you need to deal with adversity. These skills of focusing attention, planning, monitoring, delaying gratification, being able to solve problems, being able to work in teams, executive function, and self-regulation. You also the kind of skills you need to create a well-regulated home and school environment in which healthy development and learning can take place. The great science started to tell us that differences in those skills start to develop in infancy. So how do those skills get good? Well, if you don't develop them early, how do you develop them later? Actually, you know them later because the period of flexibility and plasticity in this part of the brain wasn't fully mature until age 25 to 30. So then the light bulb went on. The reason we're not getting a bigger impact is not because we don't know about how to influence development, but because they're giving information and advice to people who need to do active skill building. Skill building by coaching, by training, by practice. We're not doing that. So we now have developed this theory of change that says we need to focus on the development of the adults who are important in kids' lives. We need to focus on their skills, their needs, in order for them to be better, more effective parents, in order for them to be better prepared to be employable, which would enhance the economic stability of the family, which is also good for children. Second of all, we looked at many people in preschool programs and childcare centers. And we said, what are we doing to build those skills in the providers? They need skill building as well. And also the community can help to build and reinforce the capacities that parents need. And the community also includes programs in which people working in programs have sufficient skills. Third of all, what are the major sources of toxic stress in this community, and how can we reduce that? Moving it up to a policy level, how are our policies strengthening communities' abilities to reduce social toxic stress and caregivers' abilities to provide kids? The development of our human capital is our future. The development of a productive workforce is our future. The development of a healthy population is our future. This kind of future orientation is critical for a healthy society. It's critical for a thriving business. It's critical for successful environment and relationships to raise children. It's all about being able to plan for the future, to have a future. And that's why this is so important.
And so that's what we want to talk about today. How do we build our own adult capacities and then the capacities of the other adults around us? So that's what several of you all mentioned. We have to be able to have parent universities. We have to be able to connect with parents. That's building adult capacities so they can be more available for the kids. Regina, you talked about community, like policies, right? And I know Erica is going to talk about community resources today. So that's what we want to talk about today is how do we build our own capacities to be able to help even the adults to build their capacities. Carrie?
I like our guest, our last guest to announce herself. Maybe because I'm a proud Philandarian too. I like women does she came in who she is.
And if somebody could pass that mic that's right there at that table, maybe we can. Oh, thank you, Regina.
And what she does.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Carolyn Hall. I am the Associate Vice President for Academic Programs and Student Success at Atlantic University. And I'm excited about the topics this morning, even though I'm late, because I'm an educational consultant. And one of the things I've been going around to different universities talking about is the necessity of developing trauma-informed teaching strategies. Because a lot of what we see in terms of we see issues and violence on campuses, when we see a lot of what we perceive as apathy, a lot of it is largely due to that the demographic that we serve happens to be Black folk who have trauma-based trauma. And it's not just that one thing. I always use this Bible verse to describe it. Sins of the fathers and children speak on age. So because we have parents and grandparents who have undealt with trauma, they pass down even more trauma to the children. What we see is the manifestation of those things.
Absolutely. Well, welcome. Welcome. You came in. Awesome. Yeah, you're adding to our conversation, intergenerational trauma, how that impacts children, youth, our college-age students. So welcome. I love the trauma-informed. Do you say teaching strategies? Trauma-informed teaching strategies. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. So that's essentially what we're talking about today, right? Is how do we build the capacity of our educators at higher education levels, from what they said from preschool all the way up to academia? How do we help to build the adult capacities, any adults that's interacting with children and youth and even college age students? So let's go ahead and get into the conversation now about being a safe person. And so one of the activities I want to do, maybe if you all can help me with the white paper, maybe we'll do a little bit of that. We're going to do, and so if you all want to, so I invite you, if you want to, you can write your answers on here. And I may ask like you all to get into little groups. So maybe the three of you all back there, and then you two right here, however you want to do, even if the two of you all want to come over here. However, we can have just two groups. If you all want to come to this group right here, and then the three of you all can be in a group back there. However you all want to do that. But what I'm going to ask you all to do in those groups is to answer these questions. Feel free to write whatever you want to write on that paper. So as you think of answers, you can just write it on that paper. So we just may need, like one or two. Yeah. So that group can write on that piece of white paper. We just need two possible, unless you all want to have three groups. However it is you want to do it. However it is you want to do it. Yeah. So you all can stay in a group, they can be in a group and back there. Okay. So we're going to take just like 5 minutes. And if you all can, in your groups, what in your life has positively contributed to who you are today? I want you to think about these questions that have positively, what or even who, it can be a what or who, has positively contributed to who you are today. What have you experienced that helped you to feel love? So even if it's a what that you think about, or maybe it's a person that you think about, or both. And so what was that thing that contributed positively to who you are today and that helped you to feel loved, cared for, taken care of, and protected? So whatever kind of comes to your mind with that, a what and or a who that contributed to any of that, like what did they do to help you feel loved, cared for, taken care of, and protected? Like what comes to mind? Okay. There's the time. There's the time. Okay. Thank you all for participating in that. Thank you all. Thank you all. So I'm going to ask, I didn't say this in the beginning, so my apologies, but I want to ask at least one person to be kind of a spokesperson of your group to say, just give us a couple of things of what you came up with. And if you don't mind, we're going to take those and post that over here. If you all are okay with that. If you're not okay with that, that's okay too. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah, and if you could press that button and it'll turn red. Okay. All right, we're going to start reporting out and debriefing. Oh, yes, we're ready.
Well, we teamed up together, which is so amazing. This is my stepson, and Carrie is my brother. So I have a combination of what experiences that I have and who I am become today, and what God has placed me with. But we both started out with a Christian solid foundation.
Okay.
Both of us was raised up in a solid foundation. A parent, loving parents. That was loving, giving, caring, supportive, not only with us, but witnessing and being supportive in the community and amongst our friends. They actually included our friends with their love and their support. And they were very understanding. We witnessed these things throughout our childhood. And it allowed us to be, our parents allowed us to be ourselves, but also had that human side and that tough loving with discipline.
Wow.
Discipline. I probably wasn't disciplined as much as most.
You were.
But I didn't have to be because I was smart enough to know what. But that tough love is one of the things that we see in life, and you don't realize it, like he said, until you got a little bit older, how important it was, and to be himself. And he saw the human side, and so did I. We saw people coming in and being supportive and witnessing our upbringing is doing the thing and overcoming all the challenges that came along with it.
Man, that's awesome. You listed probably at least 10 ways that we can be a safe person for the youth. Love, understanding, and it seemed like you witnessed. you witnessed them do the things that they were teaching you to do, and they allowed you to be yourself, understanding, supportive. You said a number of things, that tough love. So that balance between love, understanding, I'm sure some validation in there, but there was balance with there's still going to be consequences and rules and parameters, right? And it wasn't too, if it's not too heavily on one versus the other, a good balance makes for a safe place. Thank you so much. Can we post that over there? Is that be fine? Okay. Thank you all so much. Kira, if you could help with that. Just over there, on that wall over there, above the chairs. Thank you. Okay, who wants to go next? Who wants to go? Okay, go ahead. If you could turn on the mic. I mean, you can just highlight. You don't have to say just whatever. Thank you, Kira. Yeah, just whatever stood out that you want to share.
Okay, so we have several,
Mhm.
but I think we probably want to share a cultural event.
Okay.
When we have lost our cultural connection with each other, then we're going in a down spot. I think with cultural connections, it's a sense of shared identity. I want to know, we are all African Americans in here, but our culture, the way we were brought up, the way we were taught things, that's different. And that's powerful though, because all of us are individual, but we still have this sense of shared culture. And a lot of that's being lost with our parents and our children. They don't even have a sense of identity. Who you are. Yes, you are Black. Yes, you're African American. But when you ask them, what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm Black. You know, I'm an African American male. What does that mean? So they've lost that sense of identity. And I think when we can connect on a cultural level, it just deepens that level.
I agree.
Who we as a culture. Then other things we talked about was family support, and you guys alluded to that, and our spiritual foundation. And you know, I am not ashamed of the gospel. I am not ashamed. So I know that growing up in a spiritual home set the foundation for my mindset and how I look at things and my beliefs and how to not be so judgmental when I see other things and how to pray.
Right.
You know, that's my spiritual foundation. And with that, going to an HBCU school, leaving a small town, going to a large university, having that cultural connection from home and then be able to connect with others at the university, just the diversity has been powerful, and we've lost that. And then especially my spiritual foundation, that was my foundation. That was how I learned to relate, communicate with others. Ms. Holmes may want to touch on friends.
Yeah, we talked about friends and key friends and peers, how important they are and having us to stay grounded and focused and, you know, having a good circle of support, you know, allowing you to grow in your experiences, your ideas, and, you know, believe, and then just having those friends create a safe space.
Absolutely. Right. That's wonderful. That's that connectedness, right? That we learn and develop and grow and kind of get a sense of who we are in the context of community and connection, be it cultural connections, spiritual connections, friendships, family, community. I love all of what you all said, connection, building that foundation. So as we're talking, again, we're talking about what we experienced that we felt was positive for us. And now we're talking about the same way that you mentioned how there can be intergenerational transmission of trauma. There can also be transmission of all of this goodness, right? So let's figure out how to continue to at least do our parts to all of that you all mentioned. What does it look like to embody that for the youth around us? So even if they just interact with us once or twice, that they get that sense of connection and love and support and care and understanding. Okay, that's great.
Well, Ms. Esty chose me to be our group moderator, and I'm going to do this. But we talked about, ladies talked about, obviously the community career groups, but I didn't say anything, but we talked about some of the things that positively contributed to who we are today, our mothers and grandmothers. And Ms. Rosetta just talked about the role that having her grandmother playing in her life, and Miss Essie talked about even the teachers, because I think I never said about educators, because a lot of times educators, me being an educator for 25 years at this point, I have been a mama, a mentee, a pastor, a prayer warrior, and some more stuff, right? And a part-time downstore psychologist. So, you know, those things, and even in my home, like they have been teachers. Miss Essie talked about having a teacher who, during her early years, when she was really, really shy, having a teacher who was not a colorist, because we know that colorism is a very real thing in our community.
Right.
But having that one teacher who said, you don't have to be the light-skinned girl with curly hair, but I'm still going to undergird you and encourage you great things. And also, Ms. Rosetta talked about the importance of community and how we're lacking in that area. And I'm going to answer that. The second question says, what have you experienced that's helped you feel loved, cared for, taken care of, and protected? Recently, I had the opportunity to go to a women's leadership in Massachusetts where I did a workshop. But one of the workshops I attended with the Black woman who talked about how the trauma that Black women experience in the workplace. And she talked about how that trauma is different at every level. Like when we talk about the baby boomers, a lot of times they didn't have mentors, and what they had to solely rely on was spirituality, right? But they also had to keep housed a lot of that trauma because they didn't have anybody to talk to. There was nobody at work because they were always the first. Then she talked about how in my particular generation that we had spirituality, but we also had really, really tight-knit friend groups. And one of the things I think about quite often is that my friends, I call them my family. Because what happens is a lot of times the struggles that I have in adulthood, being a working Black woman professional who has to have the double conundrum of racism and sexism, right? And even among your own people, even though I work at an AABPP, a lot of times in our community, we can be very, very sexist and not even realize it. And so what happens is, I'm sorry, Dr. Crawford. I know what I'm saying. But you know what I'm talking about. And that a lot of times what happens is that our girlfriends are the ones that understand, because if I would say something to my mother, she would say, they make the payment of money, they really don't. But, you know, compared to what they used to make when, you know, when she was coming along, it seems like a lot of money, right? But money doesn't solve everything, and there's a lot of the issues that professional Black women go through. Even in terms of, and my mother's generation and the baby boomer generation, they got married a lot quicker. My mother didn't understand. I can tell with my students, when I was a professor at Carter University, it was 17 to 1. So everybody ain't get married, they unless you're gonna be a polygamist, right? So what happens is that when you look at that, a lot of times because they don't have experience with professional Black women, they don't understand what that is like, right? And that you cannot go with those old adages that they used to have, because we are very much, you know how you talk about trauma being encoded in the memory? We've seen our mothers and our grandmothers struggle because for them, the man was necessary for survival. And while many Black women, professional Black women would like to be partnered, they do not subscribe to the notion that a piece of a man is better than no man at all.
Right. Talk about it.
Watch grandma and great grandma.
Yep, not doing it.
Just to have that man. And sometimes it was a necessity. But like Lou said, we can do bad by ourselves. So just knowing those things, so having that circle, sometimes is some providing a lot of the love and the care that is missing in some of our relationships.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. You talk also like intersection of identities, generational types of things, like talk about it, right? So, but to me, that's part of the understanding, right? That understand that with the youth and even with adults, we're going to bring in different pieces of our identity. And that's going to be important to be a safe person, to understand what aspects of this person's identity, race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexuality, economic class, what are they bringing in? How do those identities intersect? And how can I try to understand that? Even if it's not agreement with all of, but if I can understand that and make them feel like they matter, and that because of their particular identity, their experience in this world is going to be different than this other person's identity sitting next to them. And that's important, right? One of my friends said, she was like, if I'm going somewhere and they act like my identity, like we can't say words like DEI or all of that, and I'm going to leave it at that since it's being recorded, but that then it's like, I don't matter. That's what it communicates. I don't matter and I don't belong. And that makes it harder. So we want our youth to feel as if they matter and that they belong. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, and it has something to do with my life, and we're seeing it more and more. What about this interim relationships now? Because now generations are more intertwined. My daughter lost Japanese, so my grandkids, I'm a Black female raised in the 60s and 70s and stuff. So I found myself, even my granddaughter asked me, she said, Grandma, what am I? Because am I Black or am I Japanese? So now, today's time, we have a lot of mixed generation. Yes. We have a lot of Hispanic Black, white Black, Japanese Black, Asian, we was Japanese, just Asian. But yeah, so how do we see a certain change in the way we adapt or associate with, because these children are coming from two different type of background?
I'm going to give just a kind of high level response based on what I think personally and professionally, but others please add to it. My thought is that absolutely. So even the question, I like the curious question, the question to want to understand. I think that's the first step, is being open to understanding something different from what we are and something different from what we have experienced or are used to experiencing, right? So I think just being open to that and being curious. That's the first, being curious, being open to understanding. I think the other thing is knowing that is complex, this idea of, I think, basically biracial or bi-ethnic or even multi-ethnic identity, and knowing what that means, that child, that teen, that young adult is going to go through this world very differently, even in groups that they feel like they should belong to. In that no group, that they're not fitting anywhere because they're not enough of something or something else. So I think even understanding that, and also hopefully that they don't have to choose, right? So that's a part to know it can be a both and to help. That's an aspect of helping even in their thinking about a lot of things, but knowing that it's not an either or. It's a both and all of who you are is welcome here. All of who you are, however you identify, whatever word you want to use right now, you figure it out. All of who you are is welcome here. So that's at a high level. Pat and everybody got something to say. Okay.
I just want to ditto what you said.
Okay.
I think on the political scene, we have seen a remarkable example of that. Yes. With Kamala Harris and how she embraced her biracial identity as Asian and as African American. And she navigated that quite well, even with the criticism and opposition that she received from the public questioning who she was. She had a true sense of who she was. And that was challenging because, as you know, her parents divorced. But in spite of the fact that she came from a single parent household, she was able to identify with both racial groups. And that gave her a sense of groundedness. So she epitomizes that remark.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm just going to say, with our country becoming more multi-ethnic, multiracial, that is something that lots of children are going to have to come to terms with. And us as adults who didn't experience that. And that brought me back to, remember when Tiger Woods came on the scene? And he came from, his mom was Asian and his dad was Black. And when he identified himself, he said all of his cultures. People like, is he Black? But he, from a young age, recognized I'm all of this, And so he got so much flack from that. But look where we are now.
Right.
30 years later, And I thought that was just he was
Yes.
someone who
Mhm.
knew who he was from a very early age
Mhm.
and was able to withstand the criticism, but he had a good sense of who he was.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
terms of understanding, he was all of those cultures, you know,
Yeah.
and he wasn't just one.
Yeah, and he sounded like he stood on that. I don't know if I don't know if I'm using it right. Do they say stand on business? Did he stand on business? Okay, so he stood on that though and stayed in his truth and embraced all of that and didn't let people pigeonhole him like he has to pick one. It's all of who he is. Carrie. Yep.
Two things. I'm gonna. One of the things that I've been able to do after land and personality theories. I teach self-identity development, and we go through all the races. And there is a biracial self-identity development. White folk have identity development. Black people have identity development. Latinos have identity development. And my goal with the students is to show them how much all the identity developments have in common.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Not how they differ. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it socially and psychologically as a child, we all come up and develop basically the same way. And the differences come in when the political stuff comes in and the biases and stuff comes in. That changes that concept. And another thing I like to say is there's a book out. I think the man who wrote the book was Dr. Robert Williams. And he has a textbook on how to raise Black children. But in the textbook, in the last chapter in the Dr. Robert Williams' book is how to raise interracial children.
Oh wow! Look at that.
How did you get you that? You got it. I got you the book.
Okay.
And I think I got your son Terrell the book too. Her son who married, I got him that textbook.
Okay.
And gave it to him because it's all about letting people know information, knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the more knowledge and the more acceptance we have of these matters, the better off we're going to be. Because folks, it is what it is. We're not in a position to lose anybody and have any kind of hatred or bad feelings about anybody because of something that's out of their control. They can't control their mom and daddy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shouldn't matter. What should be matter is how good of a mother and father that they have. That's right. And not the color of the mother and father.
Mm-hmm.
That's my
Yeah. Thank you for that, Carrie. So it seemed like part of what you're saying is educate yourself. Get information. Go ahead. Yes.
And I think the whole, the growth in the number of biracial children that we see is really important. But I think that within the context of our community, what makes it complex is we have to deal with our fascination with otherness. Right?
You can move the mic.
Because what happens is, I think a lot of times the reason why, because essentially I always my instance to the whole notion of biracial is that all Black folk in America are biracial.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Start getting into otherness. There is because of what racism and white supremacy has done. When we start categorizing, we get into this whole notion of otherness, and then otherness becomes a betterness. Right? And I think that is why it becomes complex. And I think that when we're raising biracial children, I think it is important that they be allowed to know who they are, but they also need to be told how the world is going to see them, because that's a reality, right? It's a reality. In addition to how the world will see them, like there's nothing wrong with you are Black and white at the same time, and I understand you want to acknowledge those things, but the world is going to see you as this. Because notice every time they got mad at Kamala, what did they say?
Yeah. They Black.
Right? Even Asian folks were calling her a Black woman, and we saw by their voting who they voted for, and it wasn't her, right? And I think we also have to we have to do a better job at deprogramming ourselves and unlearning a lot of the things that we learned, because Black folk too help to forward a white supremacist agenda that we have not unlearned yet. We get into the good hair. Cute to be dark skinned, right? And so what happens is this is why when multiracial or biracial kids come into Black environments, people will say they're not Black enough because it is this pride. And nobody wants to feel like they're safe in place, right? And so I think that we have to begin to unlearn those mindsets, because sometimes even when we look at it, there's a why behind it. Why are so many seemingly wanting to create. Because now it's one thing to fall in love, right? You can't control who you love, but there's another thing to actively seek out because you don't want to have fully Black children. And that's a very, very real thing.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's like she's speaking of something that resonated.
I'm a baby boomer, and I just, for me, it's just growth. Just, I think especially with Black people, Black men actually seeking out other women, Black women are marginalized, gender, they promote all races. And we're least likely to find a permanent mate. We're just kind of scraping the bottom down. And so many levels. And me personally, it angers me. I get upset when I watch commercials. In every commercial, there's a white man, a black man with a white woman. It just, I don't know, I just,
Okay. Okay, no, like what is right? That's good. Yeah. Well, and I think what you all are both highlighting, I'm gonna say one thing is to process that, to be able, like we did in the beginning, right? To name how certain situations make us feel, name how we feel, be curious about it, sit with it. And that's what it means to be a safe person with ourselves and other people. That to kind of say, okay, that's a reaction that you have, like anger, frustration, maybe even rage. Let's just sit with it. Like, okay, that's understandable, right? And at the same time, I want to kind of highlight what you're saying about part of being a safe person for our youth is being open to it. Some things we're going to have to unlearn, right? What do we have to unlearn so we're not, maybe inadvertently passing down some things that's just not going to serve them well, right? So we all have to just be thoughtful about that. It may not be the same thing for all of us, but being open to sitting with the way that we feel about different things and then also unlearning. I think you all have basically covered these. You have covered these. So I'm just gonna connect it because Carrie, you said a while ago the kids need to know that we care. That's the acronym for today. So hopefully you take something with you. This CARE acronym. Create brave spaces by doing. We have one more. Carrie, if you don't have to get that one more white piece of paper, but do all of these things to create brave spaces. Actively offer support and understanding, be able to regulate our own emotions, because like you said, we can't be a dysregulated adult cannot regulate a child, right? So regulate our own stuff and encourage growth and development in all of these areas. So identity development, having a foundation, encouraging critical thinking, all of this kinds of stuff that we need to encourage. Did you have? Go ahead. Yep.
This happened in one of the schools recently. Halloween and all the kids brought candy. And one of the Latino males brought candy. And when we were there, he was up at the table crying. And all the students were saying, he's mad because nobody likes the candy he bought. Well, it was something that they, are totally familiar with. It was sweet and spicy and this and that. And all the kids, the more they showed him care, the worse he got. And I thought, okay, we all need to just back off. Because we were getting nowhere with him. But he surely felt like, because we didn't like the candy he brought, it was because it was from Mexico or something. But I thought, what point you can just back off and say whatever we're doing is just not healthy. I was sort of surprised. But I feel like racially, he felt like we didn't like what he brought. And his way of dealing with was to get very upset, hide under the table and cry. And then he got up and went around picking up all the candy that he brought so he could take it back home.
Right.
Wow.
You feel appreciated.
Yeah.
It's probably exciting to bring that and to share something that was different and it was so important to him. And then what happens? He gets there and his joy about sharing becomes sadness because he's hurt.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So feeling appreciated is important. And I think part of it, I'm going to, on one of these slides, I think I have something about what their language of appreciation is or language of love. I know, I'm pretty sure several people have heard about love languages. So I think the more we get to know people and build that supportive relationship, maybe we'll get a sense of what care means for them. I'm sure it's been times where, like me, I'm like lean in because maybe it's my therapist side, and hugs can be good and talking can be good, but I've come across people that's not what they need. So it can be overwhelming and overstimulating, even though I intend it to be care. It's not received as care or support. So that could be, I don't know, that's something to just, and again, a lot of this takes just curiosity. It may be hard to know all of what was underneath that, but being curious about, for some reason, it wasn't a sense of appreciation, and that kind of dimmed the joy that he felt in the beginning. Yeah.
And I just want to speak briefly on that. That, as an elementary teacher in the past, that would have been a perfect teachable moment for the teacher to just spend a few moments talking about the candy that he brought. Most children were used to mounds and M&Ms and Butterfingers, and they may not have ever had any of that hot, spicy candy from that culture. What a perfect teachable moment it would have been for that teacher, put all the candy in a pot and just so much of the elementary teacher and anything. But that would have been a teachable moment.
Yeah.
And I do believe that child would have felt a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have learned.
Thank you for sharing that. A teachable moment. You all are on all the slides. I'm going to ask Regina, just come on up here. You got to make me stop so we can transition to the next. But as Regina is coming, if you can keep this in mind, ways to create a brave space. Be curious. Foster supportive relationships. We talked about that. Actively offer support. Check in. Languages of love and support, right? Give people, you all already talked about this, give people options. Give the kids options to have a place to rest, reset, and recover. Teach and model regulation skills. If you're taking deep breaths, make it clear. Ooh, I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling disappointed. I'm going to take deep breaths. I'm going to sit down. Make it clear what you're doing. Narrate it so they know what you're doing. And then opportunities. You said that. Learning opportunities, teaching opportunities. Notice, be open to times of learning, fostering a growth mindset, celebrating them. Let's celebrate our kids, our youth, our teens, and young adults. Celebrate them every chance that you get. So I encourage you, as you move through, just have ways of how you're going to embody these principles as you move along. And okay, that's it. Now, where we're going up next is moving from dysregulation to regulation. All right, done.
I know that we're running a little behind, but I want to give it, you all have been sitting so patiently all this morning. So we're going to take about a 5-minute break. If you get up, stretch, get water, get refreshments, or go to the restroom, whatever you need to do. So about 5 minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start back. Now, we've heard a lot this morning about what dysregulation looks like. And I'm sure all of us have seen, experienced a child or an adult that was in a state of dysregulation. I've given you some sheets here, and I just want you, everybody has one, to write a couple of things on your sheets that represent dysregulation. You don't have to write a sentence. It can just be descriptive words of what dysregulation looks like behaviorally.
Examples?
Yes. You've been having some, okay? A child that's out of control. What are they doing? She just gave us one about the child, the little Mexican boy who got under the table and was all distraught. Kids who are in a fight, fighting, fight or flight. Screaming. We don't know why they're screaming, but they're upset about some people are upset. So just give me a couple of descriptors, and then I want you to share those with the group. Okay, you just have to do 2. Just 2. Well, you can do a third one if you want. Okay, so it looks like everybody has at least 2 things written down. I'd like to ask you to share what some of those look like. Tell me what you have on your sheets.
We have shut down and running away.
Okay. What does shut down look like?
I experienced a student that absolutely not talk, not move, not do anything. Anything you ask them to do, they just totally at a standstill. We got to give them a check sometime to see if they're breathing because they totally shut down and they shut the world and everybody else around.
Okay.
Away. Shut it down.
Okay. And the other one is
Running away.
running away.
Shut down.
Okay, this group, 2 is enough.
Oh.
How many can you give us your descriptors that you have?
Yeah. Anger outbursts / tantrums.
Turn your mic on.
So we have anger outbursts
Okay.
/ tantrums and defiance and oppositional behavior.
Okay. Can you give us an example of what that looks like? What does an outburst look like? Thank you, Carrie. And the other one is what? Defiance?
Will become unfold where the behavior, their response then, is not in line with what is happening.
Okay.
It's kind of excessive.
Okay.
You know, maybe ask them to wash the dishes and they, store the room, something like that.
Okay.
And then just be intentionally defined and,
Okay. And last group on the back?
Everybody's already said temper tantrums, say violence and overeating.
Violence and overeating. That's an interesting one. Never associated. We hadn't talked about that one as a possibility. Overeating or undereating could also be one. So we see what dysregulation looks like. It disrupts everything, and the child or the individual is out of control. So we want to go from being out of control to getting into control. So before I say anything, I want you to just draw a line under what you have now and write down for me a couple of things that you feel like would indicate to you, Johnny has been in a wild rage, he's been running, he's fighting, he's doing all these things. What would be some examples of showing that Johnny is calming down? What would the behavior look like if he's going into a point to where he's calming down? Couple of descriptors. You don't have to do 2. Okay. Are we ready yet? We'll start with this group right here.
Oh, so we have, our body language has changed. You can see that. You don't have to say anything, but you can see them becoming less tense. By the facial muscles, just the entire posture of the body will change. And then the voice becomes calm as they speak.
Next group in the back.
Quieting, that child's beginning to like quiet down
Mm-hmm.
and just
for lack of a better word, cheating. And you see that they're children.
Okay. Okay.
We said instead of shutting down, they're smiling more, they're asking questions, getting involved. Instead of running away, they're more of a team player, they're relaxed around the classmates and they're getting.
Okay. So we see from your descriptions, everyone has shown that there is a change. So there's some interventions or some things that we do from the time this regulation episode starts to get to the areas that you all are talking about. What we want to do, Dr. Holmes talked about being a safe environment, being a safe person. Those are all elements to help us help us regulate a child, or it could be an adult. Somebody talked about a teacher that was dysregulated. Sometimes we have to regulate the adults before we can even get to regulating the child. When we're talking about regulating, children and adults, individuals are able to hear and listen and process what is going on as opposed to just, out there. When they're in the middle, as my mom used to say, sometimes you want to prevent the storm, but once that storm starts, sometimes you just have to ride it out. You just have to ride it out. So what we want to do with our children, especially in school, is to be in a position to where we can be individuals or interveners that can prevent them from getting totally to dysregulation. Because sometimes when they hit a certain point, we have hit the point of no return, and you just have to ride that storm out. So as we think about those, and particularly I work in a school setting, and several of you have talked about working in school settings, what I think it's important that we know what to do, when to do. There's a intervention called CPI. It's a crisis intervention. And one of the things that they talk about in that is when you see the escalation start, you do some interventions at the very beginning. You talk to them. Try to talk to them in a calm voice. You don't have a lot of people around them, because the more people that gather around, the more they're likely to escalate. They're feeling in that fight or flight state. And a lot of times, depending on the experiences that child has had, they will come out fighting. Now, the one that shuts down, you don't want them to stay shut down, but that's much better than being in that fighting stage. Okay, we would rather see them just sit calmly. And in that situation, you're able to talk to them calmly. So if their voice is escalated, what should our voice be? Calm, bring it down. I used to tell my son when he would do something, and I would talk to him in a very quiet voice, and I would say to him, when you hear me say this, you need to be very afraid. You need to be very afraid. And so, because sometimes he would escalate, and my mom, lived with me for a while, and she would escalate, and I would say to them, son, come here. I'm not going to say it, but come here. And he would, it took time to get to that point, but he would come. And so then I could talk to him. He's like, well, she's, I was like, bring it down. I'm right here. I'm right here. So that's one of the first things that we can do, is really to talk to them in a calm voice. Sometimes we need to give them space. Unless they're frailing and hurting themselves, give them space. Make sure that there's nothing that can hurt them or what have you, but give them space. Sometimes they just need to calm down. And I would say, when you're calm and you're ready to talk, I'm right here. Wouldn't move, wouldn't leave the scene, and wouldn't allow anyone else to come into the scene, because what happens when more people come, that's what happened in that conference I was in yesterday, is that all these adults, and they're firing questions one after another to this child. He couldn't even process the first question before another question was coming, was there. And I just had to say, okay, let's let him have time to think about this. Let's, back away, because mom was just interjecting. you'd ask the kid a question and the mom wouldn't answer. It's like, no, we want him to answer because this is about him. So we really do want to keep kids in a state of regulation as much as possible, because it is then and only then that we can talk to them and help them process through. It could have been a very simple issue. And like we were saying, kids who've experienced trauma, we don't know all of the trauma that they've been through. You know, like sometimes I remember a client that I worked with when I worked in treatment foster care. She was a 3-year-old. She turned 4 by the time she came to us in the program, but she had been her mother and her younger brother's caretaker. Can you imagine that? She had seen her mom, she was biracial. Her mom was white, dad was black. Both of them had mental illness. And her mother was also bipolar. The dad was schizophrenic. They had been through so much trauma, and she had seen her mother beaten so many times by a black man, different black men, that she had this idea that she didn't like black men. And they couldn't tell her anything. And so whenever, and then the little brother, she protected him. So she was constantly telling him what to do, and he would obey her because she had been his caretaker for so long. But then when they got in the therapeutic foster home, the foster mom was single. We had issues, with them, and she could rage for days. I mean, I was at the point where there were a couple of times I had to spend the night at their house just to keep her and work with them to keep her from being so out of control or doing something so serious. You don't want to send a 4-year-old to the hospital if you can help it. So this child was dysregulated most of the time. And we had to do, what we did with them is what we call family therapy, is to work with the parent, the foster parent, and the foster parent is there guiding her through, calming her down, talking to her, letting her know that she was in a safe place. We weren't even addressing the issues. So we have to give them those key, the same thing Dr. Holmes was talking about, be a safe person. And she knew that she could count on her foster mother no matter how out of control she got. She could count, foster mom is going to be here, be there. That's that sense of security and safety. And as we do the feel more safe, feel more comfortable, then we're able to process. So when there are some techniques that we can use. We would have her do deep breathing. We would have her sometimes, we would have them, if we could get them in a situation to, I'll let them scream sometimes. So scream, and it's real loud, and then we do this, bringing it down, bringing it down, bringing it down. And when it gets to here, it's, we're at a point now where we can talk. And so all of those things come into play in helping us be regulated. When we're regulated, we can listen better, we can learn better, we can do our jobs better, we can do everything better when we're in a state of regulation, relaxed, and so forth. So that's what we want to see for our kids. It's too often in a school setting that I see kids who are dysregulated, and we have teachers who have not been trained to deal with kids who have trauma. They don't even know what it looks like. And many of them don't even know that the child has experienced what kind of trauma they've experienced. And so they will do something or say something that triggers a child, and they're like, well, he just went berserk in the classroom for nothing. But because they don't have the training and the knowledge, I mean, nobody just starts screaming for nothing. We may not know why they're screaming, but there's an issue there. And so we want to make sure that we can recognize warning signs. What are some of the warning signs that we can see when a child is becoming dysregulated? That little boy yesterday, his fists were like this. He was ready. His fists were like this. So he's already clenching his fist. Start talking loud or whatever. And at that point, if there's an individual within that building or that situation that has a good relationship with that child, that's who you want to work with them in that situation. Sometimes that person may not be available. So what do? The person that's there at the beginning, you can have a support person there to talk you through what to say and what to do in a lot of situations. Yes, ma'am.
I witnessed that hand on because we are kindergarten through eighth grade, and we found one of the another good resource for us when we're dealing with children that are continue to have problems like that. We'll call the parents, and sometimes we don't get the response that we need because the parents sometimes are tired too.
Mm-hmm.
They tell us, look, I don't know what else to do. We've done this, we've taken them there, we're doing this. So, we understand that, but we'll see if they have a sibling, an older sibling. And one time we had a student that was like constantly getting in trouble, horse playing and things like that. And we call the parent and he gets the same punishment over and over again from the parent. We looked up and found that he had a brother in the eighth grade. When we called his brother out of the class, that boy cried harder when he knew that his older brother was coming down than he did when we told him he was calling his parent. When his older brother walked in that room and he asked him, what is he doing here? And we started telling him, that boy cried like a baby. And we had the older brother talk to him because the older brother we know did not display those type of behaviors. So we knew it was a disconnection somewhere. He was just trying to get away with it. But there are other resources that sometimes you can use, especially when it comes to children.
Right. So some of the things that we can do with them to I've already said about doing deep breathing. And some kids will say, well, I've been doing deep breathing, it doesn't work. But they're not really doing deep breathing. They're doing this. That's not deep breathing. You got to breathe from your diaphragm. So teaching them the correct way to breathe. Movement sometimes they just need to run. In one of my schools, it's a middle school, 6th through 8th grade, they don't even get to go outside, period, which I think is crazy. They all have a PE class, but at lunchtime they eat and they go back to class. These kids need to move. They need time. You could solve a lot of problems and keep them from ever getting to that point of dysregulation if they just have movement. So when we write IEPs, a lot of times we will put in there movement breaks so that they can get up and move, do whatever it is. I'm not concerned about whether you can sit at the desk all the time. I need you to just get your work done. So if you can do it standing up and you're regulated in that situation, that's fine. Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
I was going to say that sometimes educators are not even aware that students have IEP. For a while, because I moved here from Philadelphia, and I moved from Philadelphia from Atlanta. And I worked in Atlanta for like 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for a small portion of time, I've been higher ed to work in the secondary alternative school of all places.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at the alternative school, I had several students who had IEPs, and for example, I had one young lady. She was always eating, always hungry, and if she wasn't eating, she was sleeping. And I mean, to the point that the little slot would come down, right?
Uh-oh.
And so I was like, so I'm getting mad because I'm giving my best work, right? So I'm like, man, now be sleeping in here, right? And so finally, after a couple of times of me getting upset and telling her what she couldn't do, the teacher next door said, Dr. Hall, I don't think you want to do that to so-and-so, because the reason why she's sleeping like that is because she's taking her meds and she was schizophrenic, right? And he was like, and your response could trigger her, whatever, right? But how? And I thought about that, how many of these kids are sitting in here and I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm just basically going with what I see, because to me it just looks like apathy. It looks like laziness, right? But there are a whole other set of circumstances going on behind the scenes that we know nothing about.
Okay. So if a child has an IEP, every teacher that student has is supposed to have a copy of the accommodations that they have been given in their IEP. And it is when the State Department comes in to look and you're listed as one of the teachers, but you haven't signed off on that accommodation list, they're going to be asking you and the special ed teacher, why does this teacher not have accommodations? So it will behoove teachers, we make sure that we get them out at the beginning of the year. That's something that we do is hand out all of their modifications and accommodations. And we have teachers sign off to show that they received them. So yes, that can happen a lot of times because students have IEPs or what have you, or they have some mental health issues going on that could easily be triggered. Every teacher that has a student needs to know that. Every teacher, they don't necessarily need to know all the details about what's going on. They just need to know this child has this disorder or whatever. They have a 504 plan or an IEP, and these are so that otherwise you can 3 minutes. Okay. You can inadvertently trigger a dysregulation episode in a student when you're not trying to. So before I have 3 minutes, I was going to do a role play, but for the sake of time, we're not going to do that. I do appreciate you all listening, and I hope I was able to give you some tips on things to do. Make sure you give them space, that they are in a safe place, and assure them that they're in a safe place, and that you give them opportunity to move and do all of these things to prevent getting to the point of dysregulation. And once they are calming down, that we continue to provide those interventions and so forth to keep them in a state of regulation. Thank you.
If you'll change it. All right. We have had some great discussions this morning, and I do want to make sure that we go over some community resources and get to the practical next steps. I think that's the more important part. There is a QR code on your agenda, which if you scan that will be the community resources that we've compiled. I am passing around, we have some, it's not blank paper, but if you will turn it over, those that are with an agency, if you will put your name and contact information on that, because we want to add you to our resources. And the name, yes, the name of the agency and the contact information. If you will highlight, there are a couple of resources that I want to highlight. The first one is Trist, if you will click on that link. Is this, will it work? Yeah. I have your name and email. So those that were here with an agency, that's who I want the agency information. So we know who it is so we can add you to our resources. Yes. So a couple of community resources I want to highlight you to. Again, if you scan the QR code, you will get the link to all of these. But this is a very important one. This is a UAMS program. And actually, the director of the program, she was actually the lead speaker at the first part one that we had. Dr. John, Sufna John, yes. And so, but this program is, it's a free program and it's valuable resources, but they actually discuss trauma-informed care, and they will come out, it's a school-based program, but they will come out to it's through UAMS, but they will come out to your schools free of charge. They will do training with your staff, educators, not just schools, but organizations, but they will come and provide training for you so that you know what that looks like. I was gonna say, as a firefighter, you're first responder for a lot of things. And I'm sure you go into homes, first of all, there's a fire, or I guess you all, if anybody calls 911, y'all go. So it doesn't even have to be a fire. So you're going into your first responder, you're seeing things firsthand in terms of situations where there may be neglect and those kinds of things. Those are traumatic events for children and families. But the TRIS program could come do training with firefighters so you at least know what those kinds of things look like and that sort of thing. But it's a great program that I wanted to direct you to. This is their website. Again, they have training programs that are free of charge. So they will come out and educate you and your staff. They also provide mental health services for free for a period of time for individuals, regardless of you call, they'll set you up, and they will see you for a period of time. And if your issues are more chronic than what they can provide after a period of time, they will connect you with resources to be able to get you that further care. So again, these are free programs. Want you to know so you can direct the people to that. And that's the R Connect program. So again, that's free mental health services, regardless of insurance or not. It's not a factor.
I always encourage you all to take down the phone number that's right there. It's all the time. Like, have it in your phone, have it available to folks.
And if you see someone in need, you can give them this information. Here, call these people, they can help you. And again, that's a UAMS program. And you can get to that, again, through the TRIS website. The other one I want to direct you to, go on down. I realized I didn't, go on down, second page, the trauma toolkit for educators. So the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, that's a national organization, but, and I didn't realize Catherine had it on the first one. Will it not work? There it is. So there is actually a toolkit for educators that you can go in, learn more about trauma, and help. It'll give you things that you can do within your school or your program to be informed and help children that are dealing with that. So that's the toolkit right there. It's 21 pages, and it's kind of a go through things that you can do. There's a guide for
across the lifespan. They have from preschool all the way to
high school. Yes. And then there's information for parents and caregivers. So that's another website that I want to direct you to. Let's see. I have a handout, Regina, from NAMI. That link, NAMI Arkansas, is NAMI is a national organization, but it's National Alliance for Mental Illness. And each state has a NAMI. And so NAMI Arkansas is specific to us, but there's actually a handout that I'm passing around with some statistics in terms of recognizing the impact and the prevalence rates of mental illness or individuals that have been diagnosed with mental health problems. When you look at the people that are impacted by mental health, it's like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 adults have been diagnosed with some form of mental health diagnosis. And again, that intergenerational trauma, that impact, grandparents, parents are exposed. Maybe it's mental illness that was never addressed. We have a stigma in the Black community with getting mental health services. We're breaking through that barrier, but it's still a lot that are very skeptical. And spiritual support and guidance and going to your pastor is nice, but that's not going to cure schizophrenia. That's not going to help that. So there are resources that are needed beyond what we can provide. And we know that when we're not addressing those kinds of things, we're not helping ourselves or helping the children that we're working with. And that goes into those dysregulated teachers. Some of them may be dealing with mental health issues that are not being addressed as well. And hurt people, And so those are definitely things that we need to recognize. So these are just a few of the resources that I wanted to highlight. There is a list of them. What I want to do is, if you will provide us with your agency information, we would like to add them to our resource list. And then what I will do is, I have everyone's email that was here today. I will send you out an email with the updated list and the handouts that were given today. So you'll be able to get a copy of that for your own information. So
So if you missed part one, how can you access the information that was shared in part one?
We should add the link right here available.
I know, we do have the slides from that. We could email you.
Oh, it's on the website. Okay, I was looking.
I missed it.
Okay.
Is that is on our website, isn't it? There was actually some video footage, but go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share. So we do encourage you all. Erica had this on the resource list. But if you could also just be aware that we do have a YouTube channel. So if you just go in, like I just went to YouTube and put AABPP, and then you can go to our YouTube channel, then you'll see several videos that we have. And I'm wondering if I can find it easily and quickly. I think this may be it. So you can go, and it's right here. This is the one from last year.
Yes. So it was recorded, yes.
Yep. So you can see there, it's about 2 hours of content. You can go through and see our speakers. So this was Dr. John. She does a lot with the UAMS programs that Erica mentioned. So parents and educators partnering as change agents for youth on our AABPP page, our YouTube page. And I'll see if it's on the
Website.
I think it's on the website as well.
I was gonna say, we had such good dialogue that day. We were like, oh, we got to keep this going. So that's where part 2 came into play. And we wanted to get something going sooner, because it's been a little over a year now. But we did another conference where we recognized the commemoration of the board, Brown v. Board of Education, the 70th commemoration of that. So we hosted that event at Philander Smith University. And so we were busy planning that throughout the year. And so this kind of got put on the back burner, but we wanted to make sure we did get that going.
So I think right now, the part 1 is just on our YouTube channel. This is new for us, this website.
The website, yes, this is a newly developed.
So we're gonna make sure that the media that we had from the day can be on our website, but it'll definitely be on the YouTube page. So the whole thing is on the YouTube channel. This is our website, AR Black Site, you'll see it up there, PSYCH.org. And you can see information. This is the one that Erica mentioned, Brown versus Board of Education. And let me see if it'll go.
And so we would love for you all to go to all the social media sites and follow us. And that's why we had you sign that media policy. Because since we have a website now, we need to make sure people are okay. So you may find your pictures and some of your video that we've done today on the website. So, but yes.
This is the one that's up there. So this is, there's Dr. Griffin.
Yes. So that was a great day.
Yeah, that was a great day. So that's on our YouTube page, but this is the one that's on our website right now. So we'll update the other event in the same way. Well, that'll be on the website as well.
Yes. And for those of you that are mental health professionals or affiliated with mental health, supporting mental health, we do offer membership. So you can go to the website and become a member. And we would love for to get you involved. Right now, we're meeting monthly, and that's virtually by Zoom. So we're not meeting in person right now. So you can always be a part of the organization and just kind of know what's going on and what we're doing. I'll let Kyla wrap it up so we can go over next steps. We do want everyone to leave with a to-do. What am I going to do? And so we want to get everyone to write that down, and we'll wrap it up after we do that. So I'll get that information. We will send out the handouts and the updated resource page. Yes.
Before Dr. Holmes wraps it up, I just want to thank you all for joining us. There are many resources. This room, this gathering has a wealth of resources. So thank you. And I commend you for what you're doing in the community because your services and your skill sets are very much needed. So you are to be commended for your commitment to the Black community, which is part of our mission. Most of our events are on our website, and the website, if you want to get the location of the website, is also on the poster there. We have a copy of Dr. Robert Williams' book, Racism. A lot of our children are dealing with the effect of racism. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. So we have Dr. Robert L. Williams' book that you can purchase via our website. We also, by the way, Dr. Robert L. Williams is a graduate of Philadelphia College. He mentored many of us, and we have a scholarship in his memory. And if you want to contribute to that scholarship fund for undergraduates or graduates, you can do that through the website as well. But thank you for being here, and thank you for your support.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. Thank you for that. And I think Regina's passing out cards, so thank you for passing those out. I do just want to highlight one of the things.
I just want to ask a question.
Did you put the microphone, please?
Question about, the, and our Black ministers. You all do a training with, like with having the, Republican has a tendency to go to our pastor for, like, we got schizophrenia, and they really pray, and that's all good. But having them ask them when they need to remember.
We have had, I guess, opportunities where churches and ministers have reached out to us. And so when we get the invitations, definitely because we all, have someone that will go out and do that. So if you know of some that would like some assistance, direct them to our organization. You can actually go on there and contact us. But yes, we do try to develop those relationships and partnerships. And I was going to say, Kyla can add some more to that.
Absolutely. So reach out to us, just like Erica said, either through our Facebook page, you can message us on Facebook, or through the website as well. So we'll, just be patient with us too, because we're learning that technology, but we definitely want to get back in touch with you as soon as possible. Another organization is, you'll see their AR Faith Network. So Dr. Kanisha Bryant Moore is in the College of Public Health at UAMS. And she does a lot with connecting the academic community, the mental health community. She's a nurse by training, with the faith community. She does a tremendous amount of work in this arena. She has a Lunch and Learn series, Faith Network Advocates. Those are largely faith leaders. And then concierge services. And I think that's something kind of new. I didn't know about that. So I would say go to this website, arfaithnetwork.org. She has a newsletter that you could sign up for. I think she sends out a newsletter probably at least weekly with different events that are going on that's connecting health, mental health, and the faith community, and works. She actually has a women in ministry brunch that's going to be occurring. You've heard of that? Okay. So I went to that last year. I think it's like November 18th. She has numerous events that she does and working with folks in the faith community and all kinds of stuff. So I would say go to this website for more information about that. And AABPP has done different events with her and different people connected with that organization. So yes, that's a great question. Thank you. Lots can be said about that. We could have a whole day just about that conversation. So yeah. Okay, good question. Thank you. The other resource that I wanted to mention that Erica had was, I just like to mention this when people are really wondering about specific trauma-informed services that are out there for children, even young children. So this Our Best, if you even were to go on Google and put UAMS and then ARBEST, so Building Effective Services for Trauma, you should be able to pull it up. And then if you go to find a clinician right there, it's a clinician directory of all the clinicians that's been trained in Arkansas in some type of trauma treatment, trauma therapy treatment. These are the 4 treatments they provide training in. Child parent psychotherapy, which is for children birth to about 5 or 6. And then also, parent-child interaction therapy, which is for younger children, about 6 or 7 and younger, because those two are very important because people wonder what therapies are out there for young children. Like, what does it mean to do therapy with a 1-year-old? Well, those
That's
are
with the parent
yeah,
and the
the
child.
parent is very much
Yes.
involved. That's why child, parent, parent, child. The parent is in every session. Okay. So yes, it's a lot of good work. And that one that you talked about, intergenerational transmission of trauma, child parent psychotherapy touches directly on that. It's really helping. I really feel like to break the cycle of transmitting trauma. Trauma focused CBT and cognitive processing therapy is for our older, like college age folks and adults. So you can go and select your county, your city, any of the therapies. So if we did, for example, see who's in right here in Pulaski County. And let's say we want to see who does work with the littles. These are all the folks, right? Can just go in, then their information will come up and it say what they're trained in. So that person is trained in all of them, right? So you can just call and of course see if they're still there and take the insurance. But anyway, it's a directory. It'll give you some place to start.
And we mentioning directories, we have a directory it's being developed on the website, but it's through on our social media. You can access it through Facebook and Instagram right now. But we have a mental health directory for therapists that are their primary focus is working with Black families and adults. So or that's their emphasis. And that's we're still compiling that list so we get new names and people that are joining the organization, which we add to the directory, but it's a resource for any and everybody. So you can request that and have access to it as well. And and our directory does specify if they're trained in any of these therapies or gives their area of expertise.
Okay, and Pat, the phone went off, but if you don't mind maybe giving that announcement.
Oh, sure.
I'm sorry. I couldn't pull it up. If you give us the name, I pull it up online.
All right. It's under communication. You go to your email address. You can pull up the. Oh, I didn't know it timed out.
Today's communique.
Okay.
AABPP will be involved in an event this Thursday, November the 14th, at Allison Presbyterian Church just down the street. It's National Family Literacy Month. Mobilizing and energizing potential engagement. The guest speaker is Dr. Janet Johnson, professor, founder of Grassroots Community Foundation, and she's also the author of Parent Like It Matters, How to Raise Joyful Change-Making Girls. And our own Ms. Regina Hunt will be moderating the discussion following her presentation. That's free and open to the public, and that's going to be at Allison Presbyterian Church on November 14th. Thank you for pulling that up, Dr.
What is that? Wednesday night, Thursday night, next Thursday.
Yeah. So you see this in the today's communique. Kenya Eddings puts a lot of stuff. If you're not on that email list, that would be one to look into. This is the other one that I was talking about.
I saw the brunch.
Yes.
Yes, I saw it too.
When is the brunch? November 18th. So that's that information there. So that's it. Second Baptist Church, the Second Baptist that's in downtown Little Rock. Okay. All right.
I was looking at the title, consequential service. Okay.
Okay, so as we're wrapping up, I know we're at our time. I'm just going to leave that up so you all can kind of look into that, and then you'll see there up there today's communique.com if you want to see. It's a bunch of other events that Kenya advertises through that website.
That's a great website. If you want to just stay current on things that are going on, and it's free service, you can just sign up and you'll get that newsletter.
Yeah. And there's actually another one, I think it's some type of wellness summit. I think it's on next Saturday, maybe at St. Mark. St. Mark is doing something. Dr. Brian Moore is involved in that one as well. So just to kind of have that conversation about wellness and faith, these things are happening, these conversations are taking place. As we wrap up, I just have a few questions. I invite you, if you want to share, you can. Just 3 things. I think about it as head, heart, and feet. So one thing you learned, what are you feeling, and what are you gonna do? Okay, so I learned about there are other things going on. Hot Springs, Jonesboro. Where did you say you were from? Hot Springs.
Hot Springs.
You said Hot Springs?
Memphis.
Memphis, that's right, Memphis. You said in Memphis. So we have stuff going on across Arkansas. So I learned about that. I'm glad Erica's going to compile that list. I feel encouraged. And I feel like what I'm going to do is reflect on what we talked about today and really be intentional about being a caring, safe person for any youth, any young person I come into contact with, including these young adults who are having a hard time launching these days. They're not quite get out there, even if they're in their 20s. So that's what I'm going to do is really focus, having a heart for that young adult population now. Anybody else that want to share anything you learned, what you feel, and what you're going to do? And feel free to write it down on that paper. Maybe if you want to, you can take a couple of minutes. Maybe we should. I know we're past time, so you can feel free to write it down if you want to. That helps you to think. But then you can share as you decide you want to. Does everybody have that piece of paper?
Their notes, I think
I'm sorry.
they're probably
The piece of paper I'm
full because
talking
people have
about.
been taking notes the whole time.
This one. Okay, yeah, this one. Yeah. So takeaways, you may have already been writing on that, but takeaways, practical next steps. That's the part that I'm talking about. That's a good place if you want to, is to write down what you learned, what you feel, and then the practical next step of what you're gonna do. As you all are doing that, I think you go a little paper.
Oh, let me take your Post-it. We're gonna hang these and get some pictures.
I guess, do I have to say what's on this? You don't have to. Let's take about one more minute. Take about one more minute to either jot down or just think about one thing you learned, how you're feeling, and what you're gonna do. A commitment going forward.
Fires is just
I should go.
Do you take blood pressure?
Yes.
Did you take it back there?
I was something in the county, all day was going on, and I made it was just like for it. That's what I do to it. I don't like coffee house and music.
They probably because it's all they want.
But your dad said,
What do you mean?
I said, well, and where's and I said, so I've been going to
All right, I'm looking forward to seeing what you all have come up with. If you would like to share, you can. You do not have to, but we just invite you to share all of those 3 things, what you learned, how you feel, what you'll do, or just any one of them. Okay, who wants to get started? Maybe this paper.
Okay, well.
Okay, anything either one of you all would like to share? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you guys for putting on a wonderful training. I think this was really great. One thing that I think I will change when I'm doing some of my meetings, the way you started that one with how are you feeling today? I never really thought about, starting my training like that. How are you feeling today? Usually you'll ask what you want to learn from the training today, but asking how they're feeling today. I thought that was pretty powerful, so I like that. But it has been a really great training. I think I'm going to do a little bit more community involvement when I see bank psychologists that I work with, but I haven't been doing as much as I could. I think I would still do more subbing because I'm really getting into that and in the high school with the young adult. But even from that, I know that the schools have different other little involvement activities that I can participate in. So this just kind of sparked the fire.
Love it, love it, love it. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. You don't have to share. You don't have to. Yes. Anybody from back there? Yeah. Please turn on your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep doing that. I'm just so happy that Dr. Crawford invited me, my friend, my homeboy. I'm grateful to be here and really I learned a lot. I learned a lot of different strategies to be able to use. Because like I told you before, one of the things I do is I do some educational consultations where I talk about these sort of things, but I talk about it from the educational perspective, like what can we do differently? Because I'm not a practitioner, so I have to talk about strategies that we can use. So I feel like I've learned a lot and grateful for the connections.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
And I feel the same.
You say ditto. All right, thank you. Anyone else, you're welcome to share.
I'm really shy with you guys. What I've learned, this is so awesome because this one of the things that we were saying before that you never really received much growing up. And I was always considered to be the odd child, a different child. And I realized that I have a gift that was spread amongst a lot of us.
Yes.
And I'm seeing the things that has made me who I am. So I learned it every time I come here, I very much enjoy it. I grow just that much more. And my heart is what I feel in my heart is just gratefulness. I love the fact that this is my stepson. I married his dad 8 years ago, and the love that I've been able to receive, but also to give. And he's a young man that's a fireman now. He's doing the same, and he was so excited to be here today. So my heart goes out to him. Yes, and I just love to see that it's continuing on even throughout young black men is really out there trying to do make a difference.
Yes.
And then I want to say that these beautiful black women who are retiring, man. We are some beautiful black women. We are beautiful. I can't school you guys, but you can y'all see. Well, I even think that just the experience, the beauty, the love, the joy, the support, and all those type of things. And I just want to continue to walk in the steps of history, the history that we're putting out into the communities and doing the things we need to do to make it a better place. So
Wonderful. Thank you for your open heart and your sharing today. All right, anybody else from the planning committee want to say anything else or share?
But you guys know this should have been standing room only.
Yeah.
It really.
Well, we had way more that registered that didn't come. So I don't know if the weather. Yes, yes. And I don't know if the weather kept them away or what.
I'm so glad I came.
I was going to say, the weather had to, because we had a whole lot of people that didn't show. And I'm glad for the people that didn't register that came. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin.
Yes.
I am not a part of the planning committee. However, I want to recognize those who served on the planning committee. They have devoted a lot of hard work. They have the background, the experience, the expertise. Ms. Erica Mays chaired this initiative. It was her idea. to follow up on last year's event in August. So she chaired the event. She works as a licensed professional counselor in the Little Rock Public School. Other members of the committee included Dr. Kyla Holmes, who is a clinical psychologist in private practice, and she's also the executive director of the Arkansas Psychological Association, the very first African American to serve in that role. We also had served on that committee, Ms. Regina Hunt. As you heard earlier, she is retiring. She has worked in a lot of different venues, therapeutic foster care, the school districts, outpatient mental health, inpatient mental health, and she will evolve into her next chapter in life. She's not retiring because we still need her. Our president, Carrie Crawford. Sorry about that. Thank you. We have a long history. We're gonna go into that, but we
Stephanie, we went to undergrad school together.
At Washington. You can get away with that. I can get away with it. He's at my brother found another mother. Okay. Absent is Miss Yolanda McCollum, who has a conflict, but she's a licensed professional counselor in private practice. But I would just like for you to join me in a round of applause for each individual. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. I also want to thank our AV guy who's recorded everything for us, Joseph, with Pristine. Okay, Beyond Pristine. That's right, Beyond Pristine. Okay, thank you so much, Joseph. He's going to help us to make sure we have all of this recorded. He was taking pictures so that if you want to experience this again on YouTube, you can catch the whole thing. We're also going to have little clips put out on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you're on any of those platforms, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, subscribe, follow, YouTube, and all of that. Thank you all for your time and attention. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.